Hello, and welcome to this your favorite channel, Edison Explains. Today we'll be talking about how to buy a PC for dummies. Every time we are going to buy a new PC, we usually see a list of specifications like this one, whereas the most important ones are the processor, the RAM memory, and the hard disk drive. Now I'm going to provide some suggestions based on my own criteria, hoping that it will be useful for you when buying a new PC. For the beginners, if what you need is to do some work in the cloud, for example, check your work email or access to that document in which you collaborate with your schoolmates, and even if you want to hear some music through Spotify or Deezer, or even watching some videos in YouTube and Netflix, then you don't need that much configuration. For this kind of tasks, it might be enough if you have a processor like a Core i3, a Ryzen 3, or even a Celeron, which is cheaper. On the other hand, you don't need that much RAM memory, so 2 GB or more are good enough. As for storage capacity, you don't need that much since you will be working mostly in the cloud. But if you want to store some information, I suggest a hard disk from 100 GB or more. There are some brands which are not defined by the specifications on their parts, but the function that they perform. We are talking about computers like Chromebooks or MacBook Air, which for this category are good enough as well. For the office workers. Now, if besides those cloud working, you also need to create some spreadsheets or documents or book something in your calendar, or even connect to external devices like a USB memory, a tablet, or a smartphone, then you might need a little more configuration. In this case, we might go as well with a Core i3 or better, a Ryzen 3 or a Celeron processor for this kind of tasks. At the RAM level, I suggest to have a little bit more, starting from 4 GB, since you are going to process something in your actual computer. And finally, for storage, I suggest to have a 200 GB disks. And if you plan to move frequently with your computer, then I suggest you buy a solid state disk. For this kind of tasks, the MacBook Air works pretty well as well, but the Chromebook might be enough if your interaction with external devices are not that significant. For the creative ones, if besides working in the cloud and working with your office stuff, you also get creative from time to time and edit some images or some videos or even code some applications, then we need a little more capabilities in your PC. For this category, I suggest having a Core i5 or a Ryzen 5 or better processor. At the RAM memory, I suggest having 8 GB or more, and at the hard disk drive, at least 260 GB. As for the brand-specific computers, I suggest having at least a MacBook Air. For the professionals, if your kind of work is more specialized or requires more performance, for example, if you need to edit images and videos more frequently, code applications, or gaming, then your computer requires the best specifications out there. For this PC, you might point to the best processor out there, which in this case is the Core i7 or the Ryzen 9, but that can change with the time. Also for RAM memory, I suggest at least to have 16 GB of memory. If you can more, the better. And finally, for the hard disk drive, I suggest to have at least 500 GB of storage capacity. There are also big brand names that covers these requirements. For example, Alienware specializes in building PCs for gamers, and MacBook Pro or iMac also supplies this kind of behavior. Because of the nature of this kind of work, I suggest to have at least one extra monitor with 60 Hz of refresh. Also, if you work mostly in the graphics area, then I suggest you have a graphic card. NVIDIA or ATI are good options here, because these are specialized tasks then you need to make an important decision at operating system level. For example, if you love gaming, then maybe the best fit for you is Windows. On the other hand, if you work in the graphics area and you need to edit images or video or render AutoCAD projects, then maybe the best choice for you will be Mac OS. And lastly, if you do some low-level work or you work coding applications, then maybe the best choice for you will be Linux. This selection of the operating system is not only a problem for this category, but for all of them. But it's a complex topic, so I suggest you visit my previous video about operating system. I'm going to share it over here somewhere so you can have a better understanding about it. And that's it. Smash like and subscribe, comment and post any question that you might have. I will try to answer that. And keep supporting me so I can keep explaining stuff. So, when might you prefer the classic
Ay!